Welcome to today's show. I'm here with my buddy Jan Hudic, childhood friend, ex-athlete buddy of mine. Used to travel the world with this guy. It's so awesome having him on the Growth Podcast. Jan Hudic is an Olympic medalist, a World Cup medalist, a World Cup champion. He now works with various cannabis companies, and his passion is Panda House and the community it empowers. I'm super happy to have you here on the Growth Podcast, Jan. This is awesome. How you doing, man?
Thanks, Stevie. Great to see you again.
Yeah, it's been a while. I'm good, man. I'm good. I'm good. This is awesome. You know, we used to be good buddies back in the day, ski racing and stuff. And
used to
technology,
be.
here
We're
we are.
Not anymore.
We're back. We're back in action. I love technology. Is just amazing. You just connect with people, and it's just like you never like walked away or something. It's just so cool. So yeah, man. Yeah, it's cool to connect again, and I'm super happy to have you here. But you know, I've known you majority of my life, but for a lot of the viewers and listeners, can you tell them just a little bit about yourself?
Well, you know, started an interesting journey fairly young on. I was born in the Czech Republic in 1981, and before I was even a year old, my mother and my father escaped with me under their arm, and on a homemade sailboat, actually, that my dad built in his mom's house through back then Yugoslavia, and to flee the communist rule for better opportunities. So ended up actually floating / sailing the Adriatic Sea from Yugoslavia to Italy, and from Italy we ended up in Germany through roundabout crazy ways, and ended up being in Germany for about 4.5 years before Canada would accept us to come to Calgary in '87 as fresh immigrants. And you know, that was just perfect timing and kind of a little bit of a segue into my ski racing career, because as you remember, '88 was the Calgary Olympics, and so we were fortunate enough to kind of come into a new country where Canadians welcomed us with open arms, welcomed us into the community, helped us get on our feet, and I started my ski racing career. I wouldn't call it back there yet, but got to go to the Olympics and watch the greatest guys in the world literally in our backyard, and I think that lit a fire in me that got me through the tough times. And there was definitely some tough times on that journey, and on the journey of life. And I think it's something that really enriched me and prepared me for everything that's happening now.
Yeah, man. Holy man. I didn't know that. I didn't know that story. I had no idea that you escaped and went on the boat and all that stuff. Wow, that's intense.
Yeah.
Holy man.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Everyone says I need to write a book, but then I live another month, and it's like, oh man, the last month was too exciting. When should I even start?
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. I actually had a guest on the podcast maybe a month ago who's she helps people write books. So let me know. I can connect you. It's amazing how the process is actually quite easy if you know the process and how to go about it. It's very cool.
That's what I need. That's what I need.
Yeah, very cool. Luana, if you're listening, I'll reach out. Yeah, she's awesome. She's really cool. So man, that's awesome. Let's go back a little ways. Let's talk about skiing just for a minute, right? That's where we met, skiing and stuff. When we were young kids, we were just jamming around the ski hills, chasing our dreams, wearing our spandex, trying to make it to the Olympics, be the big shots. I went on to move on to college and ski there and enter the corporate world quite young. And you continued on with that journey. And man, did you ever have an amazing career. Ups and downs, injuries, success. You went to the Olympics, you won medals all throughout everything, world champion medals, World Cup medals, Olympic medals. Like, for guys like us who didn't get there, it's like I was watching you from abroad with like giant stars in my eyes, just being like, yeah, screaming at the television. Those are my buddies, you know, the go. It's just so awesome. So what was it like, man? Like living out your childhood dream and actually making it? Like, what's it like competing on that level, the World Cup, the Olympics, that kind of stuff? How does it feel?
You know, it's interesting because I still to this day think about it quite a bit, but it's you know, when you're if you were to take someone like out of their life and just plop them into that world, for sure extremely shocking and exciting and crazy and hyped up and everything else. But I think, like with everything that we do, I think when you live it and you live that step by step, I'm not saying it becomes like a monotonous job. That's not true. I was always humble enough to recognize that that was an incredible way to live and to grow up. But at the same time, when you're taking that step by step, you're just living in the moment. You don't have time to like look back. You don't have too much time to look forward unless it's some sort of a strategic goal that you have that's just going to give you steps to get there. But other than that, it's just one step in front of the other, and then all of a sudden you find yourself in this new scenario, in this new place. And each week, each month, each year, the tights get a little tighter. The the uh, the scenarios, the scenarios change, the obstacles change, but you're living your dream, and the more you're thankful for every moment, I think it just keeps everything in perspective and allows you to kind of just make those steps one by one, and not only work hard and overcome stuff, but enjoy the moment that you're in.
Yeah. Enjoying the moment would be probably the most challenging, right? Because, you know, from what I can
You
remember of,
enjoy the moment right after.
yeah, exactly. That's the thing. Like literally right after it's done, like you're like, oh yeah, it's done. That was awesome. And then you can kind of revel in it and you're all pumped and everything's awesome. But then like literally the next minute you're like, well, I got another run tomorrow. So I gotta get my shit together and, go for my jog and get a massage on my legs because I got a race tomorrow, man. Like it's already on to the next thing, right? Yeah, it's cool.
Exactly.
What
It's exactly, yeah.
one of the things that plagues professional athletes, both physically and mentally, are injuries, right? Injuries are just, I mean, we've all been injured in some fashion if you're competing at a high level with stuff. I remember when I broke my leg, my brains broke as well. I literally tell people this. I wasn't the same after that. And I was still young when I did that. I was only 17 or something. And I literally wasn't the same. I knew it. I was going down and I had fear in the back of my mind. I could not shake it. And I knew it, but I couldn't admit it to myself until I'm older now. Reflecting, I can realize that was a huge problem I had. But for guys like you, I mean, you pushed through and raced like the hardest, most intense downhills in the whole world, literally the most demanding courses on the planet. You've gone down them multiple times post injury. And you've had some traumatic injuries, more than most people, actually. You've been injured more than most people that I know, actually. So how do you like mentally get through that and just still show up and be the best version of yourself?
That's a that's a good question, and it's there's a layman's way to explain it. It's also fairly complex, but um, I will just before I answer that, and I think this is one thing that I learned when I was speaking to a lot of kids and stuff at schools or even business groups, businesses. Like a physical injury in sport is the same as a financial injury in business. It doesn't mean that you're dead. It doesn't mean that you're going to necessarily be bankrupt or have to close or have to do this, but it does mean that it's going to be painful, and it does mean that you're going to have to go through some stuff and overcome the fear of whatever that injury was, whether it was financial or physical. And it is hard, and it's extremely hard. And this is what I tell kids. It's like, we do these motivational speeches, and is it about the medals? Is it really about becoming Olympic champion? I mean, I had a bronze medal at the Olympics, so I wasn't the fastest, but it's still a medal, which felt like a victory. You'll learn later why. But not all the kids are going to have an Olympic medal, or not everyone is going to have a business that makes $1 million a month or whatever else. But what is important is that journey of, and exactly what you said, when is that self analysis. And I think the more and the faster that you can completely dissect yourself as a human individual and figure out where you stand with yourself, is the sooner that you can actually overcome these things that are extremely debilitating. Like mental fear is the most debilitating thing on the planet. And we know that it doesn't matter if it's sport or business or self-esteem. One thing athletes suffer with tremendously is self-esteem, I think. And in a place where, again, that translates not just to sport but into life, is one of the most important things that we have is our self-confidence. And whether it's business coaching or a sport or whatever, investing or whatever it is, that public speaking, you know, self-esteem and self-assurance, and where does that stuff come from? And it's like, how much of that stuff is, can you blame on your parents? How much of that stuff is your responsibility? How much of that stuff is your school teachers, people in our lives, bullies, this, that, whatever? I mean, at the end of the day, there's so many factors that can bring us up and harm us at the same time, that unfortunately, and it's not fair, but at the end of the day, every single person is responsible for themselves. Doesn't matter how hard your life was, how easy it was. We have to answer to our, we have to be accountable to ourselves. And this is what sport does. Sport forces you to be accountable to yourself, and to how, not only how you treat yourself, others, everything else, how hard you work, everything else. I mean, I struggled with all sorts of stuff in my career that I, feel like I could have been much better, and this and that. But really, it's just a massive, like a massive forced introspect.
Mm.
And that's what sport is about.
Mm.
And that's what it was for me. And early on, one of the major things, now I'm coming back to one of the major things that helped me uh, was my faith. And not only that, but on top of that, my faith in the fact that that was my destiny. And whether that was true or not, I basically grabbed onto that and believed it, so much so, I called it like the childish naivety. It's and this is why, this is why it's so important uh to basically support, children at a young age, in their dreams and stuff, and not to crush them. Okay, I want to be an astronaut and a pilot and this and that and that and that. I know there's reality, obviously, and there's certain things, but that childish naivety of the world, and the dream is literally the thing that'll keep them alive when they're going through the shits. And when you're older and you're going through the shits, it's any small belief that you had as a child that wasn't like brainwashed out of you or completely killed, that will get you, or that may get you through the toughest times in your life. And for me, that was definitely a case when we went to those Olympics in 1988. I was like, 7 years old. I barely knew what was going on. I just saw a bunch of guys in tights racing down the mountain, and thought it was really cool. My dad was a coach, and we skied, and always, obviously, I had all these ingredients to be a good skier, but we were poor. We didn't have, and skiing is a pretty affluent community, especially if you want to make it, later on, 15, 16, 17, as you know, it gets crazy expensive, and not everyone can do it. But when I was standing up on that hill and I watched that guy go down, I literally just remember vividly one of the Swiss guys or whatever, the Swiss cheese suit, and watched the guy go by, and just connecting that feeling with my reality, which was skiing. And that's what I'm going to do when I grow up. And then no one ever told me not to, that wasn't true.
Mm.
No one ever beat that out of me. And then for the rest of my life, basically, it was just step by step. Okay, then you're 8, then you're 9, then you're 10, then you go into the U12s, then you go, then you turn 13 and you go race for the first time in your life against these Austrian kids or these Euros that completely crush you, and it shoots you down again, and that crushes your spirit. But then you're like, well, but if I just do this and this, and maybe I can do this, and then you build up again. Then you get on, and then you get into FIS, and you get completely crushed again. Then you go into juniors, you know, you get annihilated. It's like this building up, and it has so much to do, I think, with the human spirit, and with, you know, subconscious, and all these. There's so many things that are connected to this, that it's a very complex process. But at the end of the day, really, literally, what you believe, and you've talked about this in your other podcasts, is what you program yourself to believe, you will do. Your brain has no idea what the difference is between you skiing down a hill and you imagining yourself ski down a hill. Your brain thought it just did the same thing.
Totally.
And this
Totally.
is, you know, and that's one thing. Sorry, I'm like long-winded here, but
No, it's great.
that's one thing that got me through, basically just like a broad picture, broad graph of my career is, you know, 16 years, 16 years on the World Cup tour, and 14 knee operations in that time. So you do the math of like how much time I actually had to like physically ski and physically prepare for these goals that I had. And a lot of my injuries actually came in like December or January, which is like the beginning of the competitive season. So, you know, out of 16 years, I maybe had, oh my gosh, four or five full seasons on the World Cup,
Holy man.
like start to end.
Wow. I
And
knew
then
you're
you,
I knew you were injured a lot, but I didn't know it was 14 knee surgeries. I thought it was like, I don't even want to say a number. Not that. I didn't know it was double digits. That's
yeah,
crazy. Oh,
14, 13 on the right and one on the left. And
wow.
you know, the left one, thank God, the left one's like really good. The right one's not great. I mean, I had 13 operations, lots of, you know, arthritis and stuff like that. So that's why I had to stop. The last couple of years were just dangerous for me to be skiing. And that's one thing. And then this also something that kind of parlays into business as well. But I mean, you know, athletes or people who grew up in a sports background often can do well in business because they know how to overcome obstacles and find new ways to get around something. Um, but also, what happened with me is when you overcome an obstacle or a barrier enough times, I'm dying here, enough times, um, it becomes a challenge to decipher when it's time to change direction,
Mm,
or not change direction, but not go over the hurdle and just realize the difference between a hurdle and an actual wall that you need to go around.
mm,
You know, we're taught to go over mountains, right? Or go
yeah.
through them. And you do that 13 times or 14 times, and you're like, well, why can't I do it 15?
Mm,
And near the end of my career, it was, you know, I never wanted to fizzle. You know, no athlete wants to fizzle. You want to be like David, or like Phelps, you know, with 20 medals around your neck, and know that if you swim for the next 10 years, you'll probably steal all the medals from everyone else, but just retire just because there's nothing left to do and you're healthy and you want to go live your life. That's the dream, right? Um, but I got stuck in this thing of overcoming obstacle, where it came because almost became part of my MO. And it was, you know, it makes it exciting when you come back and do well. But then at a certain point, you need to also um, open up and again really do a big introspect and like really look deep within yourself. And is this really still my destiny? Am I supposed to be on this path still, when it looked impossible 6 years ago and I got a medal, but now it's looking impossible again? Where's the limit? And that was something that I struggled with, because I really, once I set my mind on something and I want to go through with it. But that was the toughest part of my career, was shutting it down. And I don't think I shut it down in time, but again, the way everything worked out, the relationships I built in the last years, business connections. Like I say, everything, not that there's a reason for everything, but the universe has a way of of finding you in your mess if you're willing to be found.
Yeah, absolutely. Couldn't agree more. Yeah, when to let off the gas and stuff, it's a tough decision, right? Like, how do you even, you
That's
get so used to overcoming. That's such an important lesson, eh? You get so used to overcoming that you just, of course I can overcome this, but maybe you should go around or divert or pivot or something. It's like, right now, actually, the moment that we're in is that moment for a ton of people in the world. It's this whole lockdown thing, and people are losing jobs and businesses are crumbling and stuff. A lot of people are going to want to go back to their brick and mortar, and they're going to want
yeah,
to revive it because they have overcome adversity before, but maybe they should actually pivot, but won't,
yeah.
right? Because they want the challenge subconsciously. They want to overcome it because they're making it happen, right?
And
Yeah.
it's also scary to pivot.
Super scary to pivot. Yeah, I've done more than a few pivots in my life, and it's very scary. It's scary, but it's also fun. That's actually something that I've kind of recognized in myself, like since I left ski racing however many years ago, like many moons ago, I've pivoted so many places. Like I've worked and traveled and gone to school all around the world. If you ask me the
Pivoted
different,
hard.
huh?
Pivoted hard. When I
Pivoted
found you
hard.
again,
Yeah, like
when I found you again, you were like, whoa.
yeah, pivoting everywhere. But
It's awesome.
maybe I'm addicted to pivoting. I don't know. Maybe that's the thing I like to overcome. New pivots, the new
It's
challenge,
true.
the new
Some
pivot.
people are fearful of pivoting. Some people are fearful of committing, and
Yeah.
that's
Ah,
it's an internal battle.
correct. Crazy. Okay, so
You're
let's.
you motivated me with the pivoting actually.
Oh yeah, cool, man. That's
You
awesome.
totally. It was just like, you know what? Because I mean, in general, everyone's fearful of the unknown. Like some adventurers love adventure, and the unknown of, okay, where are we going to sleep tonight? And you have money in your bank account, and we're going to some beach somewhere. That's one thing of adventure, the unknown. But like literally, like you said, people who are used to touching a business, touching brick and mortar, touching something that overnight may be passe,
Totally.
and pivoting from something that is our comfort zone is difficult. Whether pivoting away from whatever our comfort zone is difficult, and um, we're heading into like a major time of, I mean, in one positive thing, I think in all of this that we're seeing right now is talking about introspection, like self-analysis and digging deep into who we are. I mean, this is a time to do that. Everyone's sitting at home,
Absolutely.
and this is going to be a time where we either figure out who we are, or we die by the wayside. And it's a harsh way to say it, but I believe, I'm a conspiracy theorist. I'm just going to put it out there,
Me too.
but I think tough times are coming. But I don't say that to scare anyone. I don't say that in a defeatist way that we can't overcome this, and we will. It's going to be a major awakening for people right now, and it's not going to matter if you have sports or a business or anything. Everyone is going to be in this, and everyone is going to be put to the test to see how we can work together, how we can work on each other, on ourselves, and find a way out of this, and find a way through this, and we will. It's going to be This is going to be a major thing for for humanity. I believe, in a
Yeah,
positive way.
me
I
too.
hope.
Absolutely. Yeah, I think it's positive for sure. I think a lot of people are opening their eyes to a lot of realities that maybe they were blind to before because they weren't forced to look at it. Now they're kind of
Hmm.
forced to look at it. We can talk about banking systems, government, all this stuff. They're forced to look at it now because they're realizing, like, oh, wait a minute, they are doing this shady stuff over here, and oh, they are not. It's just too obvious now. It's black and white. It's on the wall,
Right.
right? You can't escape it.
Right.
And as far as people being home and not at work and all this stuff, exactly, it gives people time to reflect and read a book, calm their mind. And when people calm their mind, even if it's not by choice, it's just because they don't have the daily actions that they're usually going through, they just
Mhm.
default into a meditative state and they don't even realize it. And when that happens, all of a sudden they're getting a download that's totally
Yes.
different than they're used to. And they're like, oh shit. And you're like, yeah, yes.
Yeah,
there,
exactly.
there it is.
Finally, we're quiet enough to hear it.
That's yeah. And by default, people don't even want, like, maybe they're not even searching, but they're just at home chilling for a week straight. All of a sudden they're kind of like zombieing out. All of a sudden, boom, they start getting download and they're like, oh my God, now
Yeah,
I see. It's like, okay, cool. Here,
exactly.
take this meditation and sit down with that for half an hour now. Now you're kind of ready
Yeah,
for that step, right? It's interesting.
definitely.
It's crazy. I think we're going to come out of it on the other end extremely positive. I think humanity is going to step into a utopia type society. I honestly do. I think Tesla uh, energy stuff and all these kind of patents or stuff are going to be slowly released to us, and I think it's going to
Mhm.
take a pivot for the positive. You can even see people talking about the positive effects on the earth right now, like, oh, there's sharks
Oh yeah,
again in that
totally.
ocean, or oh, look at the ozone, it's fixing
Exactly.
itself. Well, it's like, yeah, no shit, because we're not screwing around with it. Right? So like even the most like
But it's amazing
diehard,
how quickly it turns. Sorry to cut you off.
yeah, instantly, like
It's
almost instantly, right? It's like
yes.
boom, Mother Earth
We
takes care
live
of it.
we live in an incredibly magical place, and maybe it takes something like this to open people's eyes to that. It's the thousands of years of what we've been doing, definitely the last couple hundred, and what like a timeout for the earth did for the planet, or for nature, and how quickly it turned. Like we live in these organisms, like what we are made of, what the earth is made of. It's such a magical place, and I think we need to realize we need to take care of it. I'm not a tree hugger or Greenpeace, but I do believe that we need to take care of the earth, and I think we are all connected, and I think this is a place where we realize that. A virus is a fairly easy way to realize we are all connected, because if we didn't do anything about it, we'd probably all get it, and half of us would croak. But it just goes to show how connected we are, but also how incredibly precious this place is. And like you said, we're so connected as far as technology goes, that I think this is the one of the biggest reasons that this enlightenment is coming, because there's such a although fake news and stuff that is rampant as well, but we're of such a massive flow of information, and we have access to information that kings didn't have access to 300 years ago, 200 years ago. And every single person on the planet nearly has access to almost everything at their fingertips, which, like everything, can be positive and negative. But I think if we realize the positive out of it, and do what you're doing. I mean, what you're doing is awesome, and motivating people and getting them to the place where they can pivot, or getting to the place where they need to go through the mountain, depending on their situation. I mean, people like you are doing that, and this podcast is just a testament to how connected we are and how connected we can be through positive information. And I think that's where we're headed, just like you said. And it's exciting. We're exciting times. That's for sure.
Yeah, super exciting times. Speaking of exciting, let's talk a little bit about something that I've been an advocate for my whole life, the cannabis industry. Right? Okay.
I was
So
like, Bitcoin hasn't been around for that long.
no, no, no. Yeah, I love crypto and we can go down that road a bit later. I know you're involved in some amazing projects there, but first let's go into the cannabis industry because cannabis industry, I mean, like it or not, it's an amazing plant, right? It has lots of medical benefits and it's just awesome. Um,
Yeah,
Hemp
agreed.
is the most diverse like fiber there is, and it's just the list can go on and on and on. I know you're involved quite heavily in the cannabis industry in is it in Canada or in Europe? I'm not so sure, but tell us a little bit
Both
about
connecting
yeah, tell us a little bit
connecting
about
both entities.
your how you found yourself in that industry, sort of a little bit of what you think about the topic, and yeah, it's an interesting time there as well. Wouldn't you agree?
Definitely. definitely. I came to cannabis a different way than you did. You were you were always the you were always the
Advocate.
guy that, well, you were the advocate. I would say when we were growing up skiing, you were always the guy that I admired for speaking his mind. I think you had a couple black eyes because of it, but you you always did your own thing, and I was the opposite when I was growing up, and I was really looked up to that. And it's not until in the last years where I, through all my through all my kind of self analysis and stuff, came to the point where I allowed myself to be that way. But when I was growing up, I was like very, you know, very under the thumb of my parents, especially my dad. He was really strict. And just like the thought of that was like, in our family, that was like insanity. That was like literally you're walking the plank, you're going to go off the ship. And even though, ironically, even though my parents were very into lots of multi-level marketing stuff in the early days, but healthy living, lots of like Chinese medicine, Eastern medicine, homeopathic stuff, which ironically plays into this now. But we were living, like I said, there was this veil over society, I believe, dubbing a lot of drugs, and I'm not even talking about like ayahuasca and LSD and things like that and mushrooms, but where we were basically taught at a young age that marijuana is just as bad as cocaine and this and that and the other. And I think, again, this is just basically, it just goes to show the information that is going around, and people finally opening up and it tears down taboos and allows us to come back to nature, to earth. I mean, before we were doing the things we were doing to nature, cannabis was there. And you know just as a testament to what it can do. I mean, growing up, I never had that connection to it, but then now recently, I just, because of the huge wave that went through Canada like 5-6 years ago, I got introduced to it again and got introduced to the medical side, which gave me a free in with my family to get in there and soup in there and and say we're helping we're helping the sick and the needy. But it opened my eyes, and I ended up actually meeting some guys in the Czech Republic who were working with uh, who's working with one gentleman who was one of the founders, basically one of the pioneers of medical research for cannabis in the Czech Republic in the 50s and 60s. And he started developing these products, and I started getting involved with him. I said, okay, let's start shipping this stuff to Canada. That got me on board with something else. That introduced me to a couple guys in Canada. Then obviously in Alberta, the oil business was just going down the tubes, and the guys who were willing to pivot, and it comes back to this. Imagine leaving your business of 20-30 years that you're crushing, you're making a good income, um, coming to the point, a realization where you're at a wall where maybe you will have to shut down a very legitimate good business that's been going for 20-30 years. That just, sorry, this is a dead end. And there was guys that didn't come out of that. There's guys that pivoted, and guys that completely even changed their entire teams and jumped into this cannabis space. So it's it's extremely interesting. It's gone through a bit of a bubble now, but like with everything else, I believe it's also, the cannabis space is also a segue into the way we live our lives as far as health goes. And and not only health, but I mean, we have to say it, creativity. Look at music, look at the arts. And this also translates into something that is extremely connected to technology, in that, and I'm sorry I'm jumping around, but this cannabis thing is opening also something that is, I totally having a lapse here. What's the guy who founded Alibaba? Do you know?
Uh, Ma, Jeff, what's his name?
Ma.
Ma.
Ma said, so in a world where every, not everything, but almost everything soon will be automized, um, robots taking jobs, AI, things like that. He had a super interesting speech, and he said, and this comes back to like this quarantine, and we're all inside and just like digging into ourselves and like figuring out who we are. And cannabis and creativity and this kind of stuff, it's all so connected. He said the only thing in the future that will differentiate you and a robot will be your creativity and the arts,
Oh, Jesus, that's heavy.
which is pretty heavy.
It's very heavy.
And this is, if you think, this is the thing that governments have been blocking for so many years and teaching us that it's wrong to dive into that space of hallucinogens and like, like basically that space where you can download. You talked about downloading before. I mean, I'm not saying you have to do these drugs to download, but
It's a shortcut. That's what it is.
it's
In my opinion,
it maybe
it's a shortcut.
it's, well, it's definitely a shortcut.
Mm,
The question is, how often do it, how to do it. It's like with everything, right? Moderation. But
yeah.
so now imagine that you're living in a society where most of the stuff's automated, um, and where do you find value? Where do you find value in people and creativity? Why are we valuable? Because each person is created. Each person has their own identity, their own talents, and we all have talents. And a lot of us live our whole lives not even knowing them. And these are the times where we have to dive in to ourselves and if you're old enough, maybe have a hoot and figure out who you are and write a song and do this or play guitar. I mean, people are starting to pick up instruments that they didn't pick up for 20 years, 30 years. Talented people, um, doing art, writing poems. I mean, coding, developing, whatever. I mean, it's all art. It all comes out of the creative mind. And I think this time is extremely important for that. And I think this cannabis wave finally opened that door where people are talking about not just cannabis, but also some of the other stuff. And it's not taboo anymore. Like literally 10 years ago, it was like you wouldn't talk about that at work. Nobody would talk about it.
Mm,
8 out of the 10 guys at the board table were smoking at home or on weekends or sometimes at least, or have had something with it. But no one ever talked about it because you go to jail or whatever. Like, you know what I mean? It's crazy how quickly it's like with the earth. Like we gave the earth a pause for like 5 minutes, and it literally like turned around, like visibly.
mm-hmm.
And it's incredible how quickly we can go from like this state of like whoa, this is all like illegal and crazy and you can only do it in your mom's shed in the backyard, to let's talk about it at the board meeting after after we get through business, like would you try. And it's really, I think there's a major like spiritual and um I don't know, socio educational veil being lifted off society, and we're in the process of it right now. And I think it's positive, very.
100%. I couldn't agree more. I literally could not agree more. You said everything I've been thinking. That's awesome. We're totally
I
in
could tell.
alignment. We're totally in alignment with this topic. I can see that.
The first time we talked on the phone, I was just like, "Whoa!" This is after I've been seeing you for a long time. I
Yeah,
was like, "You've got to be kidding me!" Okay, we're out there. We're out there. He's out there, and
totally.
it was cool. It
Yeah,
was cool.
man, that's awesome. So yeah, you mentioned the world's changing and veils are being lifted and stuff. So yeah, I also have an interest in the cannabis industry, um, in the medical side of things. I'm also involved in a project in Switzerland, and they're supplying CBD flower and oils and things to the European market because it's legal there now too, right? Like,
Mhm.
and like I live in Rome now, right? And when you walk down the street in Rome, downtown, like right by the Vatican or right by like the most famous architecture building, like right there in the corner, it's like a blinking green, flashing, like super neon cannabis store, right? And like they have flowers and they have everything there. And I was like, wow, times have changed like quickly, you know, it's just
Quickly.
so mainstream. And yeah, so I have an interest there in a Swiss company, which is nice. And they supply CBD and we can either get it shipped to us or we can sell it back to the company, which obviously that's what I do. I treat it like an investment. And so yeah, they crop out every couple months. They tell us how much CBD we have in our plants, and then we just sell it back to them. It's a cool operation. But here's the
That's
kicker.
awesome.
This is going to segue directly into our crypto stuff, cryptocurrency. They pay me in Bitcoin. So I invested
Right.
into this with Bitcoin and they pay me out in Bitcoin. The whole operation's run with cryptocurrency. Now, I'm not going
Right.
to go into right field about any of that sort of legalities for the company. It's all legitimate and it's registered. Okay. Don't come track me
Yeah.
down. This is all on the up and up. I'm just saying they're using crypto as the monetary vehicle, which is very cool. So I know you're also heavily invested, not invested, but vested emotionally, spiritually, financially in the crypto space. And I know you're involved in some really cool projects that are being launched and coming out currently. One of them is called the football coin, which that's just such a cool concept, man. So tell us a little bit about that.
Well, like all this other stuff, it's how we came to it is fairly complex, but the universe has a way of guiding those who wanna listen to the right paths. And often now in hindsight, we came to it too early, or maybe just in time. Who knows? You know, the guys who were at Bitcoin 10 years ago were getting laughed at, and they're the only ones laughing to the bank, obviously. But we came really the way the whole thing started, or how I came to crypto, was through Panda House, which just started off as this. Really, what it was an idea. During my ski racing careers, after a couple of years where I made some money and going through all the trials and tribulations of also not having enough, having to pay my own way, even on the national team level, to represent my country at the Olympics. I knew I wanted to do something, but not just like a charity, like a handout charity. Here's 3 grand and go do your thing, or 10 grand or 20 grand or 100, because ski racing is extremely expensive. Um, but before, like a lot of good ideas, before I knew what I was getting into and before I knew what the end result would be, my vision was way bigger than anything I had money for, anything I had expertise for, anything I had good connections. I knew I had good connections, but the dream, the vision was bigger than me. And I think any good idea, any really great idea, has to be bigger than yourself. And that's what led me on this path of like, okay, I'm going to support some athletes, but I want to mind blow a little bit. And I knew I didn't have enough money to help these athletes. Two athletes were kicked off the team at the time. Jeffrey Frisch, who you probably know, and also part of to half Italian or Italian, and Lerser Yurkio at the time. And budget was tight in this, and we don't have enough money for you and them. And you're too old, and you've had injuries. I was like, well, I don't know, I don't believe it. How do I help these two? I really believed in both of them. Um, how do I help these guys? And I, made at the time maybe made 100 grand, 150 grand here, which was for me was massive as a skier, in Canada. And so out of that, I took, and taxes and everything else. And out of that, I took like 10 grand, which was for me, that's a lot of money at that point, when the years before I was making 20 or
For sure.
30.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I said, okay, but how do I get my biggest bang for the buck? And so the entire thing started with, okay, I'm going to sponsor an athlete that I'm actually competing against, because this guy can't find support in the corporate world. There's so much money back then. Money was flowing. Oil was $100 a barrel or whatever, 120, God forbid. Now it's, we'd be happy with 80 or 60, but money was flowing, this and that. People are ready to cheer for you when you're at the Olympics, or to cheer for you when you bring the medal home. Where is the support 8 years, 10 years before that? Because that's how long the journey's, 8, 10, 12 years before, at least, before that Olympic medal comes around, if you even have a chance to get there. And I said, like athletes are like a startup. You
Yeah.
have to invest in this business before the damn thing has some fruition. Otherwise, it's not an investment. Everyone can throw money at gold once it's up or whatever. It's finding that nugget in the ground, bringing it up, cleaning it off, polishing it, putting it through the fire, refining it, and then you have this beautiful thing. And that's an athlete, that's a musician, that's whatever, that's a small business, that's a startup with a vision. And it's the same thing. And so basically I said, well, what's my biggest bang for my buck? How do I do this? And I basically went to the media, and I sponsored them with this thing it was called Panda House. And Panda was my nickname at the time. And house, like the German spelling, was meant to be the entity, the safe place, the entity or the community covering this vision. And the vision was not only sponsoring athletes, but also sponsoring someone that you're competing against, literally, like sponsoring your direct competition because you're one up on them, or you've made it, so to speak. And really, when sports started, it was a gentleman's game, no matter what. When soccer, football started, I watched a great documentary on Netflix about soccer, the English game. It's actually very interesting about these economic ties to sport and the amateur sport and how amateur sport was looked at. But to come back to that, it was, the Olympics. What did the Olympics started with? I got a great friend of mine who's involved in a project, Makis. He's a Greek guy, a Cypriot guy who has a bunch of businesses in California. He's working on this massive project he's building it now, actually, in Greece, at the original place of where the Olympics were held. He's building a massive monument and basically resort and center where people from all over the world can come, and the idea is to honor all Olympians that ever fought or were in the Olympics, and bring back, now the name fails me, the Greek word, theory, or something like a theory or something like that. Basically, the Greek word for lay down your arms. It was literally nations would lay down their arms in a city 60 kilometers or whatever away from that site. They would lay down all their arms, stop all wars with each other, and as gentlemen march these 60 kilometers to the site of the Olympics, where they would train for a month and battle each other. And then the games would proceed, and then they would march back and pick up their arms, and it was like 2 months of peace. And that is powerful. Like,
Wow.
This coupled with, like, how can we get this mindset back into people, into sport? And so I'm going to go back to these two kids. I said, well, you know what, I'm going to sponsor them with this thing, and this idea of not just sponsoring the money, but mentorship. And kids, okay, they don't just need money, they need mentorship, they need help with sponsors, they need, how do you do this, how do you do that, how can you help them? And that's kids. There's other adults that need the same mentorship. This is exactly what you're doing. It's like mentoring people with the actual intent of, like, empowering them, whether or not it totally benefits you directly or not, per se, right? Literally passing on information, empowering. And that was my intent with these two. And I knew that if it got out into the media that an athlete, a current amateur athlete that was not making that much money was literally financially sponsoring another athlete that he was competing against, because no, I don't want to use the word, corporate company, like no one in Canada would even like back this guy that was, you know, hard worker, talented, had potential, or the girl. And imagine what that would do when it hit the media. And I knew it would just be like a mental switch, and it would cause the commotion needed to change the mindset. And the crazy thing is it worked. And both of them ended up finding more sponsors through this. And Larissa actually, she ended up raising the entire funds, like it was over 100 grand, 150 grand, to completely split from the team who completely ditched her, start her own program, start training with her own coach. She was only like 25, 26 at the time. They completely wrote her off. And after 2 years, she's standing on the podium at 3 World Cups, qualified for the Olympics, and was standing on the World Cup podium 3 times 2 years after that.
Oh,
It's like,
boom.
wow. And
Yeah.
it's exactly, you know, it's like sometimes we need to get slapped to realize what we're missing, you know. And I had to slap the I had to slap the corporate world a little bit and just put some accountability, you know, like on our society. And both of those, you know, both those athletes now or later have retired and got into business and supported a bunch of companies that they were involved with. But that was only the beginning. So then fast forward a couple of years, and I meet Steve Van Zutphen, and this guy is like bigger than life. He walks in. A mutual friend of ours introduced us in Calgary, and this guy comes in and he starts talking like technology and like this and that. And I was never a tech guy before. Like I had a crappy old computer that was like someone else's like third computer, you know, like that was me. I had the flip phone for a long time. And it was something that I was scared of because I didn't grow up in that world. I didn't have, you know, we didn't have that much money, so we didn't have the best Nintendo. We didn't have the best Sony PlayStation when it came out. We didn't have Macs at home and computers and all this. So I was scared of that world a little before because I didn't have access to it. So I was like, oh, I don't know anything, and all these kids know more than I do. And so that was one of my challenges the last 8, 10 years. And when I met this guy, Steve, he started, you know, we got to know each other, and he had this technology that he was marketing, and these different apps and this operating system. And he's like, well, look, I really like your vision. I like this idea, but like, how many people can you help? I was like, well, I don't know, one, two, three, you know, like maybe if I don't make any money, I can't help anyone. And he said, well, you know what? Skiing is such an incredible community. It's beautiful. First of all, the content is beautiful online on the internet, photos, videos. It's rich. It's a great family sport. Blah blah. All these things. It had all these like tickers. And he said, look, I have technology that's scaled, and I built systems for the government and this and that Greek government and here and the social networks. I said, he's like, let's do something with this. This is an amazing way to showcase my technology, and let's create a community. And here's where the empowering comes in is this is exactly at that time where all of Facebook's like security just went completely to shit. No one trusts, okay, people are stopping to trust governments. They don't trust Facebook. They don't, Facebook now owns WhatsApp, blah, blah, blah. You know, it's like, it's just all this cluster of stuff. People are losing not only trust, but they're also losing ownership of their content. And then Facebook, not only that, you garner 1,000 followers, 10,000, a million of your own followers because of your content. And now there's algorithms in place that you can't even actually reach even your followers. And to reach your own followers, you have to now pay to reach them and everything else, blah, blah, blah. And this whole circle goes around. They own your content. You're basically a slave kind of to this system, which is in in theory, the entire system is good, and it's a great way to share information. But we were like, okay, well, why don't we build this community and take some of this revenue or some of this wealth and actually and the value is each person. What's the value of money? What's the value of communities? It's the people.
Mm.
The people give it the value. The US dollar, Bitcoin's value is because it has a massive community that holds trust in a circle within each other, and the usability and the ability to exchange with US dollars and this and that creates a massive amount of value. And that's the same way. So we said, okay, well, how do we build this? And this is how it started. It was just like kind of not even a charity. I hate to call it a charity because I almost feel like that's a dirty word these days. But it's like, you know, a typical charity only has to give up 10% of of their money to whatever their cause is to be a foundation or whatever.
Yeah.
It's
Foundations are just a veil.
it's just a veil. It's crazy. So what we said, okay, we're probably getting laughed at, and it's taken a while for us to find our team because you really have to find people that are able to be the guys that have the FU money. I call it.
Mm-hmm.
I call it FU money, but also that mindset where you're willing to stick your neck out in a world where everyone's scared of losing faith with the bank, the investors, these guys, that guy, the guy running that corporation, this guy, that guy over there. And it's been tough, but we basically have found over the years a team of people who believe in this project and this vision. And so now I'm like super long-winded, but before we even got to cryptocurrency, we knew crypto was around, and Steve's been following it for as long as you have, at least maybe a little longer. And he was always kind of playing with it on the side. And we just came to the point where we said, okay, well, how do we build value in a community? So we said, okay, let's build a world ski community. And that's how it started. Now it's TFC. What's the biggest community on the planet? It's not a country, it's not a religion. Bigger than any religion in any country on the planet is football, soccer. We call it soccer over here. 4 billion people
Wow.
are connected or somehow fans or players of soccer worldwide. 4 billion people. And what gives you value? What gives currency value? It's people. Why do you think Facebook is trying to create a cryptocurrency?
Mm.
And they got shut down. They got shut down by France and Germany and who knows who else, because imagine 1.8 billion people. How many people on Facebook? 1.8 billion, I think. That's
Yeah, something
the
like that.
US has 350 million. Imagine 1.8 billion people all of a sudden are given a currency plus a marketplace, Facebook marketplace, to use it. That's enough to topple the euro. That's enough to, I mean, this is like big stuff now that we're getting into.
Mm.
And Steve saw this coming like 4 years ago. We were talking about it and everyone was laughing at us like, Facebook, you're crazy and this and that, and Bitcoin's going to be dead. And every time Bitcoin goes down a little, people freak out and it's like it's going to die. And that's the same with cannabis. It's like now it's down. Oh, it's the end of cannabis. This is all these major things that changed the world had the exact same life cycle. Whether it was cannabis, the internet. I don't know if you remember, while we were pretty young, when the internet had its
Mm.
heyday, there were people making hundreds of millions. There were people losing hundreds of millions, and the bubble burst, and everyone's like, "Oh, it was a sham," and like Bill.com didn't never existed, and I gave him all my money. And yeah, but IBM existed, Apple sure existed, the internet sure isn't fake. The internet lived.
Yeah.
This is the exact we're these two. I totally, and I always compare these two. Is like cannabis isn't as big as the internet, but crypto sure is, and blockchain. This is it's as big or bigger.
Mm-hmm.
Combining with all this 5G stuff that's going on, it's about to get crazy. And this is like we are not going to recognize in 5 years, we're not going to recognize where we're living and how much of this has changed. And you can make fun of it. But the reality is, like, look at what's happening now with the economy. This is a perfect intro for nations, which they're already doing, is putting their own crypto, and they just needed to figure out a way to do it. And have everyone sitting at home waiting for it. I don't know. This is getting into conspiracy, but this is so when we said let's build a community and create massive value, and then give that value back into the community for the community to build itself. Because I'm not going to build a cricket, like I'm not going to help a cricket player, but another cricket player will help a cricket player, or a musician will help another musician that's gone through the same thing. So why don't we build communities that are self-sustained and have an economic mechanism to be rewarded for their content, rewarded for their talents, their energy, their information, not stolen like Facebook, rewarded for it, and then have that economic power recirculate in that community to build that community. There's so many musicians, like this, take it away from soccer for me. There's so many musicians. It's like the 2% are making 80% of the money. Their 20% are making 80% of the money more. So I think it's a bigger gap. And there's so many great musicians that are just like making $100 a week, or they get paid $100 to play at a bar. Why can't you? There's a way. I'm not saying they shouldn't make whatever 50 million. Maybe they shouldn't, but I'm sure they could be fine making 40 or 20. And I'm sure the guy's making $100 at a gig at a bar could make 500 or $1,000, and all of a sudden they don't have to do 3 jobs plus try to create music because they are good enough. I'm not saying everyone is going to be on a level playing field. This is not an advertisement for communism. I mean, we escaped communism, right? But
that's a good point.
But there is enough value, like these food shortages. There's enough food for everyone. There's enough. I'm not saying everyone will get the same, because everyone's content isn't the same. Everyone's talents are not the same. But there is enough for everybody if it's played out right. And what we do is the same thing in football. We are giving a mechanism to small and middle-sized clubs to regain marketing and advertising value back into their clubs. So basically what we did was we built this, Steve and his team, I didn't do anything because I'm not a technologist, but some marketing and connecting great people. But our team built this incredible platform that was already powerful, and basically connected all of the things of like Facebook, WhatsApp, what's it called?
Instagram?
Not Telegram, but what's Reddit? Like forums. What is the best place in the world to get vetted information? Is forums. Car guys do it. People who weave yarn do it. You do it for cat food, whatever. Like, what is the best? One of the fastest growing sites on the planet is Reddit, because you have 1 million people on one page for a certain genre, but there's only like 10 people or 100 people contributing to it, but contributing articles that they find, that they vet, and then the entire community vets if it's a legit thing, which is like, I find that like genius. It's organic, it's beautiful. So we connected that to the world of football, to soccer, which you could do 100 times over for different sports or music or whatever, and basically give the community the power to decipher what the best information is, but having access also to the best information in that field in the world, but also being basically reimbursed for their content and their actions with points. In the beginning, we're like, had a hell of a time trying to convince people. They're like, wow, this is an amazing idea, and it's so cool. It's so cool. Like, what are the points worth? How do you tell anyone what the points are worth? It's like, well, I don't know. Like, how are 1,000 points in Russia going to be the same value as like 1,000 points in Zurich in Switzerland? And it's like, well, like, so basically the vision was the points would have a current or monetary value within that community. So you can go to a stadium and buy game tickets. You can buy a beer. You can buy merchandise, jerseys. Fast forward 3-4 years, and all of a sudden, okay, we need to build up. People get it, but they don't get it enough. Okay, what do we do? So this guy has been building like crazy stuff in terms of technology, and like adding things in our one app. We have things that have been just single projects elsewhere for hundreds of millions of dollars, and we're just adding them into the app to basically make the entire ecosystem run and work. I don't know if you know Revolut at all, a little bit.
Yeah, I have a Revolut card. Yeah.
Oh, there you go. So we're like this close to basically having Revolut. It's we have probably the first, I would say. I haven't seen another one, but in the football app, you download the football app, you follow your 3 favorite clubs. Your app turns into the app of your favorite team, like social news, um, all the latest news, like up to the minute, highlights of the games, a place where you can predict game matches and stuff like that, win points, everything. All your interactions in the app give you points, and the points you go into your profile, and we have an in-app wallet, an in-app crypto wallet that basically within that, you just with a click of a button you can convert your points into TFC, which is already, so now in Cyprus, it's almost 200 locations where you can buy with TFC out of your app. Like so basically think Apple Pay meets Revolut meets Facebook for soccer.
Yeah. Oh, wow.
It's
That's
crazy
intense.
within one app. I mean, it's a handful, but people who love the sport will dive in. I mean, look how complex Facebook is now. When we first started, or Instagram was like literally take a picture, post a picture.
Yeah.
There was nothing else, and it didn't work at the beginning, and people went away from it, came back, blah blah blah. But that's Instagram. It's quite simple. Facebook, I mean, you have Marketplace now. You have like your menu bar has like 10 things in it. You
Yeah.
have menu bar at the top, at the bottom, down the side. If you put someone into that right now, they'd be like, holy crap, there's so much stuff. This is crazy. It doesn't matter. Your friends teach you how to use it. You learn how to use it, or you grow up with it, and you grow up with the developments. And grandmas are using it. Everyone's using it. Everyone's using it. And this is literally what we've done, is given a simple way for the average person who's not into crypto into cryptocurrency, and enabling them to actually mine it basically with their content.
Mine it with
And
their content. Ah, that's the key right there.
that's the key right there.
That's
What you
awesome.
basically what you're doing is we're giving you a reward for your content, and you can either use that within the app, or you can convert it into a currency and go buy a jersey. You can buy tickets, buy a beer, give it to someone else, send it to someone in a direct message.
Oh, yeah.
Like and now, since last week, um, you can sell it on LA Token, on the
Perfect.
exchange,
Look at that.
or buy it.
Or buy
Better
it.
yet, buy it.
Yeah, yeah,
You don't
buy
want to
it.
be that guy that bought Bitcoin at 20 cents and then bought 3 beers with it.
No, you
You want
don't.
to be the guy that bought Bitcoin at 20 cents and kept it for a couple of years.
Exactly.
And
Wow, that's crazy. This is the first time you've explained it that in detail to me. Now it makes it makes perfect sense exactly what that is. That's very cool. That's an awesome ecosystem.
that's
Very powerful.
so.
Wow.
And now really the value add is in Cyprus we have 50,000 downloads and 35,000 daily active users. Like Facebook doesn't
35,000.
even which is like Facebook doesn't put up numbers like that.
Wow.
It's like 30, like out of the 1.8 billion people, I mean, 30%, probably 30 to 50% are using it daily or almost
Holy.
daily. But so people who are passionate about this and see a way to use it and see that it worked, they were the benefit of the ones that saw it work. We did we did a massive, we did a big launch where they could actually download it, get the points, invite friends. For everything, you're getting these points converted to crypto. And first 2-3 days, we were explaining to everyone, like Facebook probably was at the beginning, with the college students, like every single person had to like dig in and like, look, you have to like download here to do this. By
Mm.
day 3, we would see groups huddled around like it was a huge music beer festival.
Yeah,
And we just see groups huddled around teaching themselves how to do it.
totally.
And now they're in there, every day making predictions, following the news, watching highlights of their favorite teams, and messaging, communicating back and forth, plus building some value.
Mm.
And they know, like, so the more transactions you have, the more. I think yesterday we made up about a third of all of Stellar's daily active wallets,
Oh, wow. That's
just with these
crazy.
people in Cyprus and a few people around the world. So imagine you get California as our next hit. California and the Czech Republic are our next two kind of launch points.
Mhm.
We were literally supposed to fly there when this whole thing went down.
Oh, wow.
But imagine you get California. I mean, look at North America. It's just soccer crazy right now.
Mm.
You get North America, you get California, you get the Hispanic community. That trickles down to South America. And what is giving these cryptocurrencies value? I mean, real value.
Yeah,
So far, it's all trading.
yeah.
So far, their value is their community and how much trust they have and
Mm.
how many trades they're doing per day. That's
Mm.
literally directly correlated to their market cap.
Mhm.
And but they're all like, you can buy a house with Bitcoin because someone will wait 4 days for a transaction to go through on a house, but you're not going to go buy a coffee with it. You're not going
Mm.
to go buy beer, and there's no mechanism. We literally have like an Apple Pay system with these places who are accepting it. KFC in Cyprus, like places like that, where they have it on the till. You just go
Wow.
in and it converts it for you, and it's like bam, 3-second transaction rate or something. To like Visa.
Wow. That's awesome. Yeah, that's so
That's massive.
so that's next level, man. That's
So
awesome. I need to get me some of those coins.
you should.
Yeah, I will. What exchange is the coin, and what's a coin called again?
The coin is called TFC, the football coin. So spelled Spanish for football, but the original kind of world language of football, I would say. FUTBOL. And the app is the football app by
The
Panda House.
football.
Spelled the
Cool.
same way, FUTBOL. And it's on LA Token right now. Um, but now, obviously, now that it's hit, and people are starting to kind of come around and to realize the power of these transactions. Basically, what we're allowing is the average person to hold crypto and allow for transactions, not only on crypto exchanges, but actual daily transactions, whether it's retail or between themselves or whatever.
Mm.
And that's what's really, really, really exciting.
Yeah,
So
that is the
LA
exciting
token,
thing. LA
yeah,
token, football coin. That's the exciting thing for a lot of people that aren't totally up to speed with the crypto space. The thing that gives a token value is it used for something? Like that's always a
right,
question. Like, so what is
right,
this being used for? That's the first question I ask anybody who brings a token to my attention. Okay, so what's it used for? Is it utility, security? Is it just
right,
for trading, or is it just an internal thing? Is it a pump coin? Is it just some BS? This is like full on. It's being used already in the real world, and it's being mined by people dropping content into the app. That is massive. I've never heard of that model before. That's a crazy way to mine.
it's because we didn't want to make all the money, it's, we had to
Damn.
take a massive step back, and it was really a love project. It was a project, like you said. It was that passion project.
Totally.
And that's what it stemmed from. And it's like, how do you empower people? How do you allow for the free flow of good content and creativity and passion? And this is like, this is it.
Mm,
This is really it. And so the football coin, it's called TFC. It's a little green thing, green circle, TFC.
yeah.
Can't miss it. And just right now, we just like literally just launched this week on, or last week on LA Token, or La Token out of London. But now we're already in talks, obviously, with the more traction we get now, it's going all over. So
Totally. That's so cool,
it's
man.
exciting.
That's very
Exciting.
exciting. I love how your vision of Panda House has like evolved from you wanted to help some skiers and you did that, and then you step.
Yeah,
It's the same vision though, right? I can see that. I can understand
it is.
the vision behind it. It's really cool. It's awesome, man. You're doing great stuff. I love it. I love everything you're doing. It's just so cool to connect again and hear everything you're doing, bro. It's awesome. So,
Hey,
man,
thank you for motivating me.
yeah, cool, man. My pleasure. That's what we do, right? It's so for the listeners and the viewers here who want to check you out on social media, check out what you're doing, follow you, your businesses and stuff. Where can they find you?
um, Ironically, I dropped off of social media a little bit because of working on social media and getting this out there. But definitely check out the football app, at the football app, the T, or sorry, the FUTBOL app .com, or you can just download the app, join us on Telegram. We got a Telegram group. And my personal Instagram is Panda House of Rock, Panda House of Rock, because of my music connection as well. And Panda's Panda, and House is HAUS, Panda House of Rock. On Instagram, that's what I usually use. I'm not on Facebook, but I will be. I am on, and you can find me in the football app
Yeah,
as the Panda.
the Panda
So
and the
that's
football
where I
app.
am
That's awesome.
in the football app, and that's a place where you can message people, create groups, create teams, you know, bid on not bid on kind of bet on matches and stuff like that, and predict game predictions, get involved, see the news. It's awesome. It's a great
Yeah.
community, and let's spread the word.
Yeah, let's spread the word. That's so cool, man. I love it. So all those links and stuff are in the show notes here. You can go down there and click on that and go check it out. Download that in the App Store. All right, buddy. Yeah, it's been a pleasure, man. Great connecting again,
Hey,
brother.
thanks, man. Really appreciate it. Thank you.
Cheers, bro.
Cheers.